All right, welcome to our nuts nut bowl. This is a nut bowl that you put nuts inside. You use the lever to crack them. My legs are not quite dry. Anyway, we've got our nuts word on the other side. We took this design from the clip art from the Autumn Book of Words. It's available just for purchase. This pattern is, of course, in the pattern that comes with it. This is a fun little take on the nut bin, and I think that you're going to have a lot of fun. We do some pen and ink. We do washes of color, talk about all kinds of different products and different kind of techniques with mushing and things like that. I think that you'll have a lot to learn. Enjoy. I'm going to paint on the nut bin here. This is a box that is made where you put a nut here. This is hardwood right here, and the handle is hardwood, so that you can put a nut there and then crack it, and the shells fall into the surface, which we eat nuts every year at fall time. So I decided to go with a fall theme, and that is just like a family tradition for us. I've got this stained. One of the proper ways to stain, and this is kind of important, I'm going to use my nitrile gloves. These are chemical safe gloves, and they don't have latex in them, which I have a slight latex allergy. You dip a paper towel. I'm not going to do it in here because it smells. I usually do it in my garage on a cardboard that's over a trash can. And then I just let it dry overnight, and you know, all the fumes are out there where fumes can be. Anyway, so you take paper towels, you dip it into your stain, and then with very juicy application, I dip it and I don't wring it out, and then I get it into all of these corners and stuff. I just put it in there and wipe it around. Then after it's applied, I even it out by wiping it down. Then I go in and do the outside and work my way around the piece looking for evenness. If I want it darker, I will go back and I will stain it one more time. It is very important to wear the right kind of protection. If you're going to be in a closed place, use the mask for your face. I can't think of what the name of that mask is, but the one that actually keeps the fumes away, not just the dust mask. Anyway, so then what we're going to do next is, I've allowed this to dry, we need to sand it. So we've got sanding discs that have different grits on each side. I'm going to use something, I'm a little bit rough. This is Minwax Early American Stain, and it has a sealer built in, so this is an excellent sealing step. Okay, that's too rough. Did you hear how much rasping that made? Okay, so we'll go down to the other disc. Okay, and if you notice, there'll be a little bit of a white tinge. That is just scratches. Once you varnish it, that will all disappear. And so I will go through and make sure that I get everything nice and smooth. I don't like strong corners on things because they can hurt. So I'll go in and round my edges and corners. Sometimes I want them, sometimes I don't. This time I want a little bit more rustic look. Okay. So I will take care of all of that, and then we'll be ready to start. Okay, I've got my drawing for my squirrel, and this is from our book of clip art, which is free, or was free with the initial purchase of the Fall Book of Words. So I want to enlarge him, and how you enlarge is you take, obviously you use a printer. This comes on a CD, so it's a JPEG or a PDF, both. It's actually both. And what you'll do is you'll use your sizing dial, and on the inner ring, that's the size of your original. And say my original was like, say, 4 inches wide. So 4 inches, and actually in this case, I'm more concerned with my height than I am with this. So I would measure how tall I wanted it versus how wide I want it. Okay, so I will take my height that I'm going to want it, and say I started out with a 2-inch drawing, and I'm going to want to go to like 3.5 inches. So we'll line up my 2, size of the original, with, what did we say, 3.5? Okay, 3.5. And so those are perfectly lined up, and then you switch it to here, and it says I want to enlarge it 175%. Okay, super easy. No more wasted ink. Ink drives me crazy because it's so expensive, and it seems so wasteful when you're throwing paper away. No more wasted paper, no more wasted ink, no more wasted time. You can do it exactly right the very first time when you need to enlarge. Okay, next we're going to transfer the band around where we're going to paint. Okay, I've got my compass. This is the half pipe compass. It has a cap on it so that you don't stab yourself when you're getting it in your putting your things in your painting tools. And on the back end of it, it has the replacement leads on board. And it has a couple of them. And we just brought in this cool thing that they're the size of, you'll look for them on the website, they are the size of these leads. I actually thought they were leads, but they are actually 3 different kinds of blades. You can cut your own templates for things using whatever you're compassing. You can cut with it, and you just take out. You just use the little wheel and you loosen up this, and then you take this lead out, and then you put in the blade right there, tighten it down, and then you can cut with it, take it out, and it stores in a little tube. Anyway, very, very cool. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to make a perfectly even border. So I'll go across. And then here, this is going to be the harder part, right? Normally you'd have to measure and that would be all tricky. And we'll just go straight on up. You've got to hold it straight with your surface, so don't start leaning. Okay? And then go around. This is so much nicer than measuring, isn't it? Especially when we have these funny edges. Okay, so that is where we're going to apply our tape so that we can make a perfectly wonderful band. Okay, so we're going to tape our band, and this is stretchy tape. Okay, and the way this works is you pull it as you are taping it, and you can tape in circles. Okay, the thinner your tape, the thinner the band. I choose to use the widest one I can, so that I don't have to worry about, if I'm using a paintbrush, I don't have to worry about my brush getting out of the lines. So I choose the widest one I can, and it comes in a variety of sizes. I actually have a tape drawer. This one is the super fine one. Ideal. These are ideal for painting wine glasses and things like that because of that concave shape. You can get a perfectly taped line, apply your paint, peel it off, and you're good. You're golden. Okay, so that's stretchy tape. I'm going to use the thicker, heavier tape on these sides that don't have any curves to them, just because I can. Okay, and make sure I'm looking like I'm pretty even. And then you bray it down with your finger nail. Okay, and then I just turn my tails up like that. Okay, then I'm going to switch to the skinnier tape. I think it's the 1/4 inch. And I'm going to stand up because obviously this is a tall piece. I'm going to start it right on the corner. Guess I don't need that much slop. Turn my tail up, and then I'm just going to work this on my line. Okay, make sure it's graceful. Pinch it down, and then I'm going to start bending it the other way. Okay, if you get a couple of little wrinkles in it, all you do is you press them down, and then you're good. No more worrying about getting that perfect line this way. Oops. You do have to actually watch where your pencil line is, though. So one hand is pulling and the other hand is taping. Okay, and then you finish the sides and we'll get to base coating. Alright, now I'm going to show you a trick. This is what I love about this, is that there's so many neat ways that you can avoid catastrophes, but you've got to know about them first, right? We've got a couple of videos, 100 tips and tricks that would be interesting. We've got two videos that have 100 tips and tricks on them each. Very, very entertaining. I mean, tips that I've gathered for like 25 years. Okay, so what I've got here, you're thinking, why are you doing this, lady? I've got matte varnish out. Here's the deal. With stain, especially with stain, if you have a blurble, a little bubble under your tape where something didn't stick down, you didn't pinch it down tight enough or whatever, if you peel that off and you've got the jaggedy edge, you're going to need to either paint another line to band it or grow your line or something like that. So what we're going to do is stained and pickled surfaces are especially dangerous. I'm going to use the ink sweeper, and I'm going to go alongside my whole edges with nice even, kind of working it towards that tape line. And what this is going to do for me is this is going to seal under with clear, and then I won't have to worry about going under with my dark green paint. And then just make sure you don't have any ridges. I'm using matte so it retains a little bit of tooth. I'm using it generously, and I'm using it as a hole sealer, seeker outer. Okay, I'm going to actually use a paintbrush to base coat with. I know you haven't seen that in a long time. The reason why is because I can't use my roller and avoid my edges very easily. It's going to be too clunky. I'm using this giant oval glaze, which is like the perfect brush for applying base coats because it's oval. It doesn't put down harsh stop and start marks, and because it's a glaze, which means it's shaped from side to side, it actually will not, it feathers things better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work on my bottom area while I'm waiting on everything to dry. And so I think I'll probably end up basing the bottom as well in the green. And we'll just go ahead and put on however many coats it takes to cover it solid. So someone came in the shop last week and we were talking about these mats. These are actually quite indestructible. You can cut them, but heat does not bother them. I put hot glue, I put the quick wood on it. I'm going to have a little review next week of it. Look on the website for that. Quick wood doesn't stick to it. Incidentally, quick wood doesn't stick to the nitrile gloves, which is why I will use quick wood. As soon as I found out that it would, I don't want to be mixing chemicals with my bare hands. I think that that is a bad idea. So I can use my nitrile gloves, I can use the mat, some tools, and then the mat flexes. But it's also a drying tray. I can lift this up and go set this someplace else. Now I'm going to trace my pattern and stuff like that. So it's actually very handy. I've got a bunch of wet edges. I don't want to set it down someplace else and make a mess. So I'll put it on here, carry it off, and proceed. Okay, as I was tracing my pattern and everything, I was noticing that I needed to have really precision erasing. I was attempting to erase with this, but I'm going to switch to this micro eraser. Look at how teeny, teeny, teeny that is. Imagine on lace ornaments and in your tiny fine details what this can do for you. I can go right on in there and I've got absolute precision. I used it on my ornament and that worked out brilliantly, and it didn't leave a residue as well. So this is a welcome addition to my toolbox. I'm very, very excited. And I've got 2 coats of my green on, and it's nice and covered. The key to tape. Let's talk about the key to tape. The key to tape is to remove it as soon as possible. That is the entire key. And when you are pulling your tape, when you're pulling your tape, you want to pull up at a 45-degree angle, okay, so that it cuts as you're removing it. Okay, and look at that razor, razor, razor sharp edge. Okay, I'm going to remove this, and when you're on glassware, make sure that you remove your tape as early as possible, because when the paint starts drying, it'll stick to the tape and it'll rip jaggedly. Got a couple of show-offs here to show you real quick. This is the studio brush basin with the 3 basins to clean and the brush holder and the spot in the back that you could put like color float or even your brush cleaner if you wanted to. This is a new water basin that is kind of unique. It has, when the handle is down, it has holders. It has a palette here that you could use. It has the cubbies so that you can put your paint and keep them contained or take some home with your covered lid. And then it has extra basins inside. So you have a generous water basin. These clip together. Then you have 3 basins that are very versatile, very flexible. I like the versatility of this. Somebody was thinking, I like that. Okay, and then it's got the lid on it to keep messes down. The if I can find a spot to put it. The other one, it reminds me very much of the one that they came out with from, I think Blow Cornell had it or something. It's got the cleaner area here. It's got the brush rest here. It's got an area here. This is really smart. It's got this little ha-cha-cha right there so that you can actually rest your brush on it. Okay, that's cool. But then it goes a little further when you take the lid off of this. Once again, notice a trend. There's a lid to this. When you take the lid off of this, and you've got this wonderful palette inside for your colors and to keep things contained. Once again, a lid. Make sure that you don't line up your handles when you put it on. It's easier to get off. And so yeah, that is just, now that's not an airtight lid and it's not a non-stick thing, blah, 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 but very, very wise water basins. That rests on there, brushes go inside of there. It's nice for longer, skinnier areas. And then my final one is one that I've seen years and years ago. Let's see if I can figure out how to open it. Come on out of there, little guy. In the bottom of there, there is a piece of foam that is sideways. I'm going to have to straighten that out. But what this is a telescoping brush holder. You put that one in there and you make it as tall as your brushes are. And so you can put a couple class brushes or your treasured jewels to keep moths out of them. Put a little mothball in there. Very, very handy for travel. You can put your flats in one, your other, you know, take the lids off, put them out, and then pull out. I didn't get the long ones because most of us that are on this website are not oil painters, but they actually do carry one that is a long one for oil brushes. But I'll betcha. Nope, not quite. Okay, but it will go pretty stinking long. I mean, this is my normal paintbrush. So this will hold all those kinds of things. You could use it for tools as well. Okay, now I'm going to put my design on here. I've sanded to take down the tooth on this. Line is crystal clear sharp. I want to find the middle of my design. Okay, so I had my clip art, we've expanded it. This is what's fun, is even if you can't draw, it gives you an opportunity to express yourself. Clip art is an awesome way to go. So we're going to fold this in half. I'm going to fold it on its line, and I'm going to get that little nut to where his nose is. That way, it's the whole design. I'm not going to just fold it in half where the middle of this is. I'm going to take in count this part right here. So then I'm going to measure this. I'm going to use my triple thread Ghost Rider. It's exactly 12 inches long, so 6 inches is going to be my center. So I'm going to put a 6-inch line and a 6-inch line. These triple threads are ceramic writers, and they erase with spit, varnish, erasers, that kind of stuff. So they are excellent. This one, the reason this is triple thread is because it has a rolling ball stylus, a gray ceramic, and a white ceramic. So it's got your dark, your light, and your transfer ability. Then I'll line this up on, and I could give myself, one of the things I'm always concerned about is making sure that I'm straight. I have an astigmatism, and I always lean, and so you'll always see me with a T-square. That is just imperative. Okay, so I want to put my line on, whoops, so that I have something to compare stuff with. Since this comes off so easily, I don't have to worry about permanently marking. Now, be careful that, like this side, these are splayed, so if you use a T-square, you're going to be really cockeyed. So this will only work on straight sides, which is what this side is. Then I'll lay this on, find my line, and then that will get me nice and straight. I'm busting the line of my pattern right here with his tail, and that's like a little design kind of thing. It makes things a little more interesting if you go outside the line intentionally. You know, like this is, when you have rooster feathers and they go way up into the border and stuff like that, that is something that is way more interesting than just keeping everything in the circle or in your shape here. All right, I'm going to get set up to trace. All right, when you're tracing, a hint that I like is to tape, poke a hole in the area of the design that you don't have anything in, and do it on the sides. and then tape the hole, and then go on the other side and do the same thing. This keeps everything working just awesome. What happens is then I can lift this either direction, but I'm secured and my pattern isn't going to wiggle. Okay, and that means I can tuck my tracing paper under and I can go ahead and get my trace. And when you're tracing, make sure you only trace the outlines. So if you have a whole lot of detail, you don't want to trace that. So what I'm going to do, this is the roller ball. This glides along, and what I love about this particular tool is it has this comfort grip, and it really is comfortable. I'm a death grip stylus chick, and that means I'm always just killing my hand. You know, when you do what we do, carpal tunnel can't be too far behind, so I always try to be careful not to do stuff that is too abusive, and styluses are very abusive for me. Alright, so I'm going to give him the details. Get them traced, and of course trace them on the other side as well. Okay, as I laid my piece down and flipped it over to trace, okay, it occurred to me that I had not wiped off a mat. Now what's going to happen here, this is teaching for, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over the years. What I learn is a lot of things by watching other people's accidents, including you see me make them all the time. But so when I paint on paper or when I paint on a nonstick mat, either way, if I leave this little loose tchotchke stuff that's dark green, and maybe I have cream paint that I'm going to paint on here, and I flip this piece over, then I'm going to have a mess that sticks to my paint on the other side. So I have to protect that. So I'm going to use a cleaning wipe. This is a new brand that I'm trying out because it comes in a big jumbo thing. And I hate new packs of them. This is any citrus cleaning wipe is what you're after. These are very thick. I don't know that I need that thick. Anyway, I'm just going to clean any paint off and any residue. I'm going to start with a clean surface. Okay, what I like about this is me changing this paper on my table is about as impossible for every project that I paint. It's impossible because then I have to empty everything off of my table. 6 feet long, I've got a lot of stuff on here to access, you know, quickly. So me changing that paper is unlikely. I have this, which is project size, and that means that I can wipe this off and keep this clean and move it around, and I don't have to worry about changing the whole paper every time I start a project. Now to do this project, I've stolen the Book of Words beginning copy. The books of words all come with all of the words on CD that are in JPEG or in PDF, so that you can easily resize them. They are designed to be hole punched and put into a notebook. This one's not hole punched yet, but it's got, like, I don't know about you, but this little phrase right here, let's get you upside right here, is darling. And the way that that's styled, I could totally see that on a banner with an oak leaf and things like that. If you do craft shows, this is absolutely killer. And just if you do any kind of painting, I am familiar with computers, and I couldn't even figure out how to get all of the kerning and the sizing and the fitting. I couldn't do it. So that's why we've come up with these books. Anyway, so I've stolen the book, and I'm looking for a word to put on the end, and I had found it, and I don't know if I've left it marked or not. Okay, so anyway, but they're all on here, and I wanted to let you know that while this book is new, this is a book of clip art that is only on CD, and it's only available as an initial purchase with this, so it's a like total introductory kind of thing. But what these are, I can print these out in any size. These are also saved in JPEG or PDF. You can use them in cards, you could use them in your emails, you can use them for designs. They're copyright free. We've done them here in a house. These are not from a clip art book. These are actual fresh drawings. Let me grab one to show you. Okay, so this is an idea that I'm working on to make this plaque into a tray. And then this is one of the clip arts. Pardon my washes of color, I was testing something. This is what I'm going to put on this plaque, but it's gorgeous. So there are some stunning, there's pilgrims, there's turkey, little mouse on a pumpkin, cornucopias, grapes. Just it's filled with all kinds of different designs that are autumn inspired. So make sure that you take advantage of getting this you get it with the purchase of either the basic book or the deluxe book while this Toll TV is in its current month. Okay, so that's where we're at. With resizing wise, we talked about the resizing dial, so we're good with that. And I think we're ready to paint. I want to talk about one more application for our book of words. I know I'm kind of hitting this a little bit, but it's important. These Toll TVs are training vehicles for you. I took an etching class recently. This is etched into the glass or onto the glass using a chemical etch, not a sandblast, but chemical etching. You could use the Delta Frost, you could use any of the etching products. But one of the things with the book of words that you can do is there's this vinyl material that you can get. You can buy it. I bought a whole huge roll thing of it. If you have a scrapbooking cutter that is for cutting out the papers on scrapbooking, that has aftermarket software to hook up with your computer, that you can use your own fonts on your computer, you can use our book of words with those, and you can make vinyl, this one's got a butterfly on it, but you can make vinyl stencils. And that's what I used on here, is I took something this size that had my name on it, and we peeled off the first layer, we put the vinyl on there, we smudged it down really nice and tight using, like the squeegee would be an awesome tool, because it's got that soft edge. We smudged it down and got it stuck. Then we peeled off the top layer, and we did our etching process, let it sit the amount of time, peeled it off and washed it off, and we had my name permanently etched on the glass. But you can do that with the fall book of words. You could make any of those phrases into stencils for your projects. Using these, you can use them for stencils for your walls. You can cut out the letters, and instead of using what the negative space, you could use the opposite, and you could put my name Patty on my wall. You can print them up as tall as 12 inches at this point. And the vinyl comes in 24-inch lengths, and it comes on rolls. Like, there's just so many possibilities. I'm pretty excited about it. But I just wanted to let you know that that is something that you can use. And those of you who have machine embroidery, you can also use the designs in your machine embroidery. So that's just more uses for them. Okay, I've been playing around with my colors, and I think I've got my palette fixed so that where I want it. What we need to do now is we're going to base coat everything with bleached sand. And that's going to be kind of a strange little step. What I have here is where I taped, I have a little ridge. That will not look good with the technique that I'm planning to use. So I'm going to go in, and I'm going to sand the ridge down. Until I don't feel it anymore. Okay, and we'll do that on both sides. And then we're going to base everything with the bleach sand. Don't worry about the details. And then we're going to do washes, and so basically the bleach sand is going to be our highlight, our very first highlight, or the very brightest highlight, and then we're just going to leave that there and slowly just shade some details. So it ought to be fun. Okay, I've got most of my details done, but I want to talk about a brush. We have the Pro Rounds, which are amazing brushes that have the yellow stripe on them. But recently I found the source for the this one that we're calling the Easy Stroke. This is a more obscure brush, and these are the same size here, both number 2s. And I think you can tell, even though this one is a little bit, let's get a little bit closer. Cindy had called and asked me about these, and so I thought I'd talk about them. Okay, so they're both the same. This one's a little bit longer, and what I've noticed is this one does, it's like Pro Round Light. So it makes a finer, less fat-headed stroke. It's just a little bit more, I don't know, it just doesn't have as many bristles and things like that. It's an excellent choice if you tend to be heavy-handed. In this case, I'm going to use one to get into the little foot detail on this guy right here. These will flatten as well. The price is excellent, so that always is good. But I've got little fingers to do. He's got little tiny fingers, and I've got lots of little details. So I'm going to use this to base my little details. It's acting like a flat, so it's not leaving ridges. get in there and do all that stuff. It is a synthetic fiber brush, so that means it'll clean out really nicely. Okay, and I'll just finish the details. I've done 2 coats. I'm going to do a little sanding. It's got a little rough texture. And I'll finish this and then flip over and do the other side. Alright, we're ready to do something. This part is the part that's frustrating because I feel like I spend so much time prepping things. Okay, so we've got white based, and I've sanded to smooth it out, and I've got my water bottle. I found some bigger ones that mist nicely for the floating misting, and they gather into the drops, but I want bigger drops for this because what I'm going to do with this is use it to create washes. Okay, so then what we'll do, we need a paper towel. I like the blue ones, the shop towels. We need a wet spot on our paper towel, so make sure you just drip some water on it to get a wet spot because water attracts water. Earlier I put this brush actually into a water drop to moisten it up, and the water was shooting its way out of it because it did not want to go into this brush because there was no water in there. Electromagnetically or something like that, water molecules are attracted. So I need this wet spot on my paper towel so that some of my paint will kind of ooze off. We want the paint color that has fallen down over here. Butterscotch, which is a fairly new color. I chose butterscotch because it's got just a little bit of a kind of a brightness to it. And I'm going to put a drop of it down on my messy palette here. And I'm going to chase a big old drop over here and get what is a puddly bunch of color. Okay, I'm going to mush both sides of my brush to make sure I don't have any strong pigmented color in there. And then I'm going to blot over here until the shine leaves my brush, and you'll see it. It's very hard to show on camera, but you'll see it. And then what I'll do is make room. Okay. What I'll do is I'll go through and I'm just going to wash this whole little dude. And because I've blotted on my paper towel, I won't end up with a bunch of streaks and water carrying around, like, what do you call it, puddles. Sorry, doing 2 things at one time. Okay, so I'll just get that nice and washed. It's going to give our squirrel just a little bit of brightness. If it's too bright and it's flaming orange, you need to say, whoa, Hoss, and you need to back it down. Okay, so I backed his tail down just a little bit because it's a bigger area. And you just coat over the whole thing. Okay, and then I'm going to do the smaller areas with a smaller brush. Keep going, keep the paint moving, because if you stop, you'll make little marks, little stop and start marks. So make sure you keep on moving. Okay. And we'll do the other side. We'll allow it to dry. Okay, one other trick when you're doing washes is to go in a shape following stroke with the movement that you want to indicate, and that will add to the texture if you do get any texture. So if my tail is curved, I don't want to do straight down strokes because then it will look strange if the texture shows. And then you can allow a little bit of texture to show and it'll act like you want it to. Okay, I think we're good. I'm not sure what color my basket's going to be, otherwise I would probably go ahead and coat the nuts and the basket and everything and do them all at one time, but because I'm designing this on its way through with you, I don't know, so we need to wait. I need to wait and see what we see. Alright, so I got a little bit stuck when I was painting this. I was having a problem with my contrast. Too high a contrast in the method I was going here with my background. So what I did is I stopped filming and I went to the other side and I figured it out. Okay, so this is the destination that we're going to aim for. But now that I'm finished with this side, I don't want this side to get all glommed up before, because I'll have to do some antiquing on this side, so I don't want to varnish it. So what I'm going to do is use, okay, you get 2 hints in one. How funny. Okay, so if you take your press and seal box, okay, and you put your yellow tracing paper on a roll in it, you can tear it off easily and it stores awesomely. However, if you think you're grabbing press and seal, this isn't going to be as effective. Putting press and seal over this will protect my art until I'm ready to varnish it and stuff. So I'll go grab real press and seal, and that's what we'll be doing. Okay, one of the issues that I had with my colors and stuff here is I didn't have movement on my background, and I think this is really interesting when we can figure out exactly why something was bothering you or bothering me. Okay, so I didn't have, it was on this solid background, and I was trying to make, you know, this little squirrel have some action and activity. So what I ended up doing is I ended up giving it a center of interest by creating the lighter green focal area. Once I shadowed, of course, and that helped as well. But this was still very flat green. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to lighten up this area, give it a little bit of texture and movement going around there, and that just makes everybody kind of sing and pop. So they'll start, whenever we do this, I'm starting with my dark background color. I want to inch up on it or sneak up on it. So I'm going to put the Hauser medium green, and we're dry rubbing. I'm not going to worry about this white because it's going to cover just nicely. And we just want to go, we don't want to leave halos around our squirrel. I'm going to sneak up on it a little bit so that we don't have sudden big popping circles or holes. You can scumble. I'm kind of got this leaves sweeping up. At this point you'll have the picture in your hand, or you'll be able to see the finished picture on the website. So lighten everything in the middle area, all around. And I'm being real rough on these. These brushes are fantastic. You don't see any little hairs falling out and stuff like that. Well, and just as I said that, there's a little hair. But I mean, I am killing the brush. It's unusual for hairs to fall out. Okay, and I'll swirl it up a little bit, coming into where he's stepping next. It's one of those times when I want to stop the camera because I think this is probably the most boring thing you'd ever see. But I have had the privilege of purchasing a couple of videos that skipped steps, and it irritated me. So I try not to skip if I can help it, if there's anything to see. Okay, so building it is, I think, important. You can barely see that that's even there, so maybe I'll repeat that step. We're going to do this same activity, but just with the traced pattern on the two ends. So you'll just do the same thing. So you can build it by using the same color again. You can take it out here to the edge, and then that shading can go back over the top of it. Now I'm going to go into the light green, which is Foliage green. Now I've got dirty brush, which means that it's not going to be very much brighter, because that dark green that was in my brush will have neutralized that lighter green. And that's a really excellent way to do this because it'll help you sneak up on it. Okay, so I'll get over here. A little bit of texture, a little bit of movement is fine. I kind of get the feeling my foliage green needs to be shaken up. Okay, so now you can see it's getting a little bit brighter, and I'm going to go ahead and shake that. Okay, that looks much nicer. When you're green, or when your color, notice how flat that color is. There's no body to it at all. This is lots perkier, so you want to make sure that you shake to distribute all of the goodies that are in the paint. Okay, and I'm going to sneak a peek over here. Yep, I'm on track. So I did that wonderful technique where I covered my piece with my what's the stuff called? Yeah, that stuff. Okay, you note the lack of press and seal on this side, and that's because my container looked like a full container and felt like a full container, and so I'm out of press and seal. But excellent for protecting, although since I'm having to show that side, it's probably best that I don't have it. Okay, so now I can really see some brightening, and we want to keep this within this area here. Okay, now we're going to go into the, I think it's Desert Turquoise. And that's going to be more at the bottom now. I've neutralized it to the point where it doesn't really show. And we'll go snaking that around and make some blowing leaves. Okay, we'll compare. A little bit stronger as far as, now watch, we'll go into some brush strokey kind of things. Not quite so much. Okay, I think that that's where we'll call that, and then we're going to repeat the same steps on the ends. Now the word that I've chosen is from our fall book of words, our autumn book of words, and it's nuts. Okay, and these are the ones that are all styled and everything. I think in this particular case I'm not going to need to enlarge or reduce it, which is awesome. You can't believe how useful these are. This particular one has heart and soul oozing out of it. It is just, like, you wouldn't think autumn could be that inspiring, but this is an amazing book. Alright, so I'll get this traced. I'm going to add some other elements to it when I get done. Alright, while painting my end, I'm switching to the bigger crescent stencil brush because I've got a bigger area. And I'm just having to fight the littler brush. That was great for when I'm going in a strip around something, but this big area requires something a little bigger. Okay, so I've got my green. Just want to draw it out. Now there's going to be that black antiquing around. So the nice thing about something like this is I'm going to just simply flip my box over, and I will start doing the same technique on the other side. And I'm just changing my directions all the time so I don't end up with really harsh stop and start marks and stuff like that. It builds, you know, you just, as soon as you think nothing's happening, suddenly you start seeing, hey, something's happening. Now we flip it back over and we just work through our steps, same way as we did around that little ghost squirrel. If it's wet, it'll be cold, and mine's just slightly damp. I'm going to go for it anyway. I'm going to keep this color within that first color. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to take my nuts word and I'm going to put it there, and then I'm going to use my stencil, which has things already drawn, and I'm going to drop a couple of leaves, and I'll make a little S kind of a look. So I'll make sure that I have some color coming out either side. And so by drying it off on the paper towel nice and strong, then you don't end up with any of the big blobs of color. If you get a blob of color, just go backwards a step and tone it down. Final color is the turquoise, and that's neutral. That color is getting neutralized by my greens very strongly, so I will dip a second time after I wipe all the other color out. So you can see that's got a little trail of blue. Very nice technique would be to go ahead and spatter, and I did just a hair of it in here, which I haven't gotten to yet, obviously, but spattering with a little bit of the turquoise. One of the things that I've run across while I'm painting this project, my bottle of bleach sand has got a pile of stuff that is keeping this thing shut. I tried, the other day, I tried prying this off. I spattered white all over the place. I hurt my thumb. I did all kinds of stuff like that. And these dried up things is what causes that. That, and I haven't peeled off my plastic. So I'll get rid of the plastic and show you. That is one tough little plastic guy there. Okay. So if I peel this off, it'll be easier. But one of the things, even when it's dried on there, this little pop top just pops it right open. I used to actually get so, because I paint professionally, I would paint all day long and my thumb would just about bleed by the end of the day. So having something to pry the lid off, and then do a little bit of care as you're putting bottles of paint away and peel this excess stuff off of there will help you. But just having a pop top is brilliant. But I made a mess of gargantuan proportions the other day when I was opening this bottle. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to clean up all of our green problems. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and give it one more coat of green, or sorry, bleach sand, and clean that up. If you haven't started your project, obviously you'll just do the dry rubbing first and then do the white. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tape our band, and we're going to make this faded blue band up there. And so on this side you could just use Scotch tape or whatever, but this is the side we want to be careful of, so we're going to use our stretchy tape. This time with my stretchy tape I am using a skinny brush, so I could use my skinnier tape. So I'm going to tape on both sides. I'll tape right on that green edge. If you don't have stretchy tape, you really do need stretchy tape. I'll make sure I'm on the green. I might even go ahead and just let a little bit of my green show. Okay, that way I know I have it well and truly on there. I guess it would be helpful if you could see what I was doing. And that's not long enough. Okay, how big is that little band going to be? This is where, you know, you can trust your eye, but you know, why not do it right? I'm not worried about being able to estimate how big that is. I'm worried about estimating it straight on a curve. That's okay. Now that takes some of my fear out of that. Okay. Somehow I ended up with the short stick again, short tape. Okay, and now we'll just tape the rest of this. Oops. This is an interesting technique. I love this technique that I'm about to show you. Alright, come on, follow. I'm having a hard time seeing my line. Somebody needs new glasses. So I went from whining about not putting them on to needing new ones. I get the feeling that that is just one of those things that I'm going to have to deal with, huh? Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use our round brush, we're going to use our desert turquoise, okay, and we're going to just go ahead and base. You're going to pinch it down with your fingernail. Then I'm going to dirty brush mix the desert turquoise in with my evergreen to make a darker turquoisey color. And then up here at the top, I'm just going to fade it in. This illuminates any of that floating type technique and gives me a dimensional. Then I can mix a little of my evergreen with a little bit of my light green, and I can highlight just up the middle of it. And then that fades from a dark to a light, etc. And then peel your tape right away. Alright, as I put the nuts word on there in the blue, and I'm not sure I'm a fan, so I'm probably going to base over that. But what I want to do is I'm going to use my stencil. The nice thing about the leaf stencil is that it, whenever you need a stencil, to do repetitive tasks, and leaves definitely can be repetitive tasks, it is so nice. Now you can flip the leaves either direction so that you can get them to go whichever way you want to go. And you could layer them easily. I'm trying to decide which leaf I want where. I think this one's going to come out from here. And first thing I want to do is, of course, tack it over and over. I have some fantastic, exciting news about tack it over and over. Number one, what we've been doing is when you get tack it over and over on something, you know, you've got to go wash it immediately. If you get it on your hands, use olive oil. We haven't found a way to really efficiently tack it over and over again off of our stencils. Well, the brush cleaner that I recommend for cleaning our brushes, which is the Winsor Newton brush cleaner, and I recommend getting a big one. If you pour, I did this last week with a little stencil that I had tack it over like with a roller all over it. If you pour the Winsor Newton brush cleaner into a glass container, like a baking pan or something like that, I used a plate with a little rim to it. I poured it in there, I put my stencil in, and I just left it to soak for a little bit. When I did that, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to damage the plastic, and it didn't. What happens is it softens up the tacket so that when you rinse it under water, you can just gently with your fingers, just gently ease it off, and it took the tacket right off of there. So if you're using just a little bit of it in a spot, you could soak it like nail polish remover. I actually tried nail polish remover. What I like about this product is it's the only thing that I've seen work except for strong alcohol or goof off. So this is non-toxic, it's biodegradable, water soluble, all the things that are good. So anyway, if you've been looking for a way to get that off of your stencils, that's the way to do it. Alright, make sure which one I'm on. I'm on this one right here. So I don't want to put it everywhere because I'm going to use both sides. So I'm using the fingertip dauber, and I'm just going to apply the tacket on there to evenly coat it. And I'll figure out which other leaf I want to do. Now, the way I get this off of here, you let that set, you let that set off to the side until it dries clear. I'm using citrus wipes. I need a pop top to get the citrus wipes open. Come on, old guy. That's not. Alright, I've got my leaf stenciled up there. I'm going to use a fingertip dauber. Just tap straight up and down. And we're going to use the same technique we used on the taped band on the border. I'm going to let that dry just like that. What I love about this is just like taping this off. I can allow that to dry, put one more coat on, and then I can shade and highlight it all in one thing, peel it off, and I've got a perfectly done leaf. No tracing, no basing again, no paying attention to edges and things like that. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I want to talk about the tack it over and over. I've been doing some experimenting with my black mat. Nothing burns it, blah blah blah. I think I might have already even said, I can't remember, I've been filming for a couple days. This is the tack it over and over on my glass cutting mat that I use to cut my rock lawn. Okay, you really want the tack it over and over on there because if you don't have it on there, then the rock lawn shifts all around and stuff like that. And if you really want to get into those really detailed places, it's nicer to use the detail knife. But Now I have a mat that I want to use for other things that I can't use. Well, one thing that the nonstick mat does that I love is it doesn't stick to this glass mat. So I could, in theory, still use the opposite side as long as I have a spot on my nonstick mat to stick it to. Okay, so that is kind of an exciting thing. I have not experimented with wax paper on this. I suspect it might be too tender. This gets really sticky. But the other good news that I love is that that brush cleaner will take the sticky off. I trashed one of my glass mats by tack it over and over. Actually takes tack it over and over off, but it does it in goofy, weird ways. So I trashed my other mat, and you can't really scrape this stuff off. But now that I know that the brush cleaner will take it off, I'm going to clean that one up and I'll have it to reuse as well. So just really cool, interesting things. Finding out that things are a lot more valuable than I thought they were even. All right, we're going to go for coat number 2. And then while it's still wet, so I have a little bit of blendability, I'm going to go into that was cocoa, and now I'm going to go into the traditional burnt sienna. And I blot it once on my paper towel to make sure I'm just not super duper juicified. And then I'm going to put that up in one side, lightening pressure as I get to the middle. I'm going to blot that off, and I'm going to go into my butterscotch. Butterscotch is one of the newer colors. I'm blotting it off and even pouncing some of that butterscotch onto my palette just to neutralize the color. And then I'll add a little bit of a highlight in the middle, and then I'm going to go back into the traditional and on one side of my fingertip dauber. Okay, so now I should have a leaf that looks pretty interesting. Ta-da! So already shaded, already based, already highlighted, yada yada yada. Okay, and I'll make sure that I don't have any bleed under, so I don't want to paint my project with the bleed under, right? And then I'm going to go in and do exactly the same technique with the oak leaf. Okay, you can clean it off by blotting on a paper towel. 2 base coats, and you're going to do that with the leaves on the other side as well. And I blotted off way too much. I had an email from a customer who wondered why we were using so many stencils. Stencils aren't really imperative, but I'll tell you, I've done a couple border stencils using leaves, and if I could do them this way, I'd do them this way any day of the week. I think they're really fantastic for backgrounds, and don't forget with stencils you can push texture paste and texture glass and different things through them as well. You can emboss on them. There's a lot of things you can do with stencils, not just stenciling and base coating. Alright, let's get you close in. We're going to wash our squirrel. I've got my details traced on. We're going to wash him with butterscotch and make 80% butterscotch, 80% water, 20% butterscotch, blot on a paper towel, and with shape following strokes, go ahead and wash him, picking up more as you need to, blot to prevent puddling. Be aware that once you mark your graphite lines, you will be, your graphite lines will be there forever, so make sure you've got what you want there. If they're ugly or they're in the wrong spots, get rid of them and put them in the right spots. I'm not worried about going on my green background because this color doesn't seem to impact it too much, so I'll just clean it with my fingertips. It can be a little casual. What this is we're kind of doing a little bit of a reverse painting. I am taking a light color and I'm using washes, so I've already achieved my highlight, and I'm just going to shade now by doing this. So it's just another kind of technique, another way of achieving a look. I like to save steps. Okay, I'm also going to wash the nuts over there. Not all the nuts are going to be the light color, but I'm going to wash over the ones that are the darker bodies. next. So this lets me be sloppy and casual. And don't forget our guy down here. Okay, we'll let that dry. You've got to make sure he's good and dry. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and base our wagon. I just ran my hand through my wash. 'Tis a true story. We'll base our wagon with russet. You can have some of your background showing through here. That's just going to add to your wood texture. You want to go shape following, so my cross slats are going to go cross. Okay. Do an awful lot of base coating after this is done. I mean, a lot of top details, so you don't have to worry about it being too pretty. Now, I'm not going to put this crossbar across the squirrel because it's going to be much easier to paint our squirrel without any interference. A lot of times, depending on how big the area is or how inconvenient it will be, that's what I'll do, is I'll paint the thing that's under first and fully, and then go ahead and just treat it as a separate element and base coat that. Okay, he's not quite dry, so what we'll do now is we'll go and take the russet color, and we're going to wash this time. This is one of those times where I'm going to get out my squirt bottle and I'm going to squirt some water. I'm doing washes and I keep running out of water to thin, but I don't want to dip my brush in because I don't want to make a puddle. Okay, and then this one we're going to do the bottoms. Okay, so these are going to be washes of russet. I've got a blot, otherwise you end up with pooling. I wonder if I could have a big enough brush here. Of course, it's the stubborn people that never will change the brush. Okay, so I've got my detail on. It's a little hard to see. I'm going to have to switch in a second here. I have to go look at my pattern and see what I've got going on here. Okay. So all the bases get washed with russet. Alright, any of the little voids and such we're going to fill with soft black. Just a base coat. I want to try not to make this look like polka dots, so I'm looking for things to make into voids. I think I'll go ahead and make him be a dark area back there. I'm doing this with a washy kind of base coat, or a washy kind of effect. I don't want it to become too dark. That might be about it here. We need it to look like it's behind stuff. Okay, so okay, we might want to fill in. I've got one little hole here on this guy. I'll fill that in. A little bit more solid coverage. He doesn't want to fill in. And we can't forget our poor net that got left behind here. Okay, it's time to start shading and highlighting our squirrel. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our lovely, I'm in love with it, #2 Easy Stroke. It's just got awesome control. Okay, I'm going to go in with soft black and I'm going to base his eye in. That way I can do all the stuff on top without worrying about covering up the traced eye. I'm going to leave where the highlight is alone. Could also dot it, which I might end up doing anyway. Yeah, maybe I will. Okay, next we're going to line all the squirrel detail with terracotta, with thinned terracotta. Okay, what I want to do is cover up the graphite lines and make them so that they're going to blend. A dark gray color could be distracting a little bit later on. Give them a little cheek line. Okay, now I can use this color while I've got it out to go ahead and start putting in just a little bit of squirrel tail bushiness. What's going to be nice about this is it's going to be hidden underneath washes of color. Those dots of water on my palette are very helpful during this part. Keep stronger bushiness at the top and at the bottom and at the ends, but this middle area not so much. Okay, then I'm going to go onto here and I want to pull in, and this is, you know, I'm going to change my mind. I was going to leave this a little bit simpler. I've been playing around with the technique. We've been doing the Zentangling, and not the ones that are, I think they're brown. I'll have to get you the name. It'll be on the packet. Not the black. There's a darker brown. Just don't tell us on here what these are, which is very goofy. Anyway, so with the 0.1 and the brown, okay, I'm going to go onto here and I'm going to give him little squiggly furs, okay. Okay, little furs. Look at my picture, look at my line drawing. Some furs coming down his belly. You can do this with your liner brush, but I gotta tell you, pretty stinking easy to do it with this this guy. Now this will take just a little bit to dry, so you can hit it with a blow dryer. These are waterproof. They're not completely water resistant or whatever. Okay, he's got little tufts on his ears. What this also does is it gives me a little bit of my darkest outline. Sometimes lining is what makes things just look rich and wonderful. Give him some tufts in his ears. Gonna give him a line for his nose. Okay. See what else needs to be. I think I'll give him a couple of, I could switch to a harder, fatter one of these for up here. A couple accents in here. Okay. Now the other thing that you can do is you could give yourself some sub-shading. And the way you do that, this goes back to the pen and ink type technique. You can give yourself some dots. It's a nice, easy way to build depth. In all the dotting areas. If you're afraid of this bleeding or anything like that, you can mist it with the Krylon 1311. We've added that to the website now that we are getting crazy about pens and things. So I'm going to give his little tooth while we're letting this dry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this part dry. I would, if I hadn't had my other side done, I would flip it over, and that is what I did on this squirrel here. Now he gets a lot redder and he's got a lot more washes, so those lines just kind of settle back just a little bit. While I'm working on, while I've got this drying, then I'm going to go work on these, and then I can come back to this, and the pen should, we'll do a test on an area, pen should be dry, and then I can get going and finish them up. All right, I'm going to do the eye detail, and I wanted to talk just a quick second about these curved flat brushes. This is the number 6 curved flat, and it's got the slightly rounded on one side and square on the other. And I found a really interesting thing the other day. I had my big curved flat. Okay, this is the curved flat that has taken me through the poinsettia mat that is in the current issue of Paintworks, the four nutcrackers, because they came after, it seems like there's a couple other projects that I've done in between. It's hard to keep them all straight when they just start running together. But the tea box, and when I did the leaves, the fall leaves, that's when I discovered this. I hadn't cleaned it yet with the brush cleaner, and I had let all of my crescent brushes dry with the paint in it from the leaf project when it was at that free access weekend like a couple weeks ago. And I thought, oh, while I've got the brush cleaner out, I'll go ahead and give this brush a clean, because I thought, well, heck, it's been through all these projects, it's going to need it. There was like nothing that came out of this brush, and that's not because that brush cleaner will take out paint. Like it'll take out any paint. It's scary how well it takes out paint. But when I cleaned it in that white basin, it absolutely was clean still. And what I've noticed with this, now this is the 6, and I use the bigger brushes more often than the small ones. And what I'm noticing is, this is the same one, I only have one set up here, is there's no buildup. And so I don't know what kind of bristle this is, but it seems to allow the release of materials from the fibers. So that's my supposition. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I'm thinking must be going on, because I am a card-carrying brush abuser. So anyway, interesting fact about these brushes that I am discovering. The only other brush that I know that acts that way is the Raphael. It doesn't seem to accumulate either. Okay, so next we're going to do his eye. I'm going to corner load the flat end of that brush into black, and I'm just going to make a little C stroke up here, up in front. Then I'll go in with the round into bleached sand, and then I'm just going to give him a little dot. Okay, now he's got a little sparkle in his eye. Now we'll move away from him, and we're going to move over here into our wagon. Okay, so I'll use my Ghost Rider, because everything will fall off when I use the Ghost Rider. What I found on the other side was I was making uneven, when I just brushed it on, I was making uneven planks. So I'll just go ahead and put that on for myself. I'm going to load soft black onto the flat edge of the brush. And then we're going to float all these staves on one side. Notice that the brush is indeed wiping out my chalk lines, but I'm still going to be able to see them in the middle. Okay, now I'll flip my project over, pick up a couple water drops because I'm getting a little dry. Get you on camera, and then I'll do all the other sides. Pick a couple water drops. If you learn this water drop technique, it is a time buster, man. You will not ever regret it. I'm going to turn my brush on the chisel and just chisel in these planks. If I float them, I could float them and I could take a million years, but I'm going to put a sign right over the middle of it and yada yada yada. So, I could float though if I wanted to. And we will go ahead and float up this outer edge down along the bottom. Now we have to add some texture. And we're going to use Patty's favorite dry brush, number 8 for that, and we're going to use cocoa. Just pick it up dry on your brush and flick the brush on the paper towel. Okay, we're just going to scratch in some cocoa. Pick up more as you need it. Always flick on your paper towel. It just adds that little bit of texture. Okay, then we're going to pick up the number 2 round and we're going to go into black. We're going to thin it. Pick up some water drops. And then this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create some holes, some loud trucks out the window. I don't want to do it everywhere, but I'm going to just create some interest. Okay, we can do some chipping wood on the edge. Okay, this makes this look dried and old. Now we'll do some wood grain. It's just random. Like you'll have lines and I'll put my lines in there and stuff, but make sure you're just being just kind of where you think you need some color. You could add nail holes, you could do all kinds of stuff depending on how much detail you want to get. We're going to shade these tops using the curved flat with espresso. Okay, so you're going to shade at the base. Give them a nice little brown look. I'm actually going to shade them kind of everywhere. By the time we get down, you're going to find, this is what I found, that that I couldn't tell my acorns from my acorns, if you know what I mean. I started losing the forest for the trees, and that's okay. I went ahead and highlighted tops and bottoms, and then I go back and I eliminate the highlight on top and bottom. I'll show you what I mean. More importantly, it's important that the receiver of the story understands that they're nuts when you get them all done. They don't, each and every one of them have to look like some perfect acorn. They just have to look like a pile of perfect acorns. And so that is the trick, is to figure out where the line is with that. And this is where your picture comes in handy. There's now an upside down. Okay, this is the top. And that's a bottom, that's top to that bottom. Okay, now just shade behind and on top. We've got to shade these ones that are in the wagon on the wagon line because they're in that wagon. Okay, that settles them in. there about what's going on right here. That one might be the base of that, so I'll have to go back in and figure something out. Actually, let's make this the top of that. Make that be a void. I think that'll work out. Okay, now we need to shade our acorns. Dun, dun, dun. First we'll shade our acorns with russet. So they were washed with russet, and now we're going to shade them with russet. Be careful about cutting through wet floats, which I've done about 12 times just now. It's the old adage, do as I say, not as I do, right? Okay. And we want to put our tops back in, our little, I guess I'll wait until I finish my bases. We've got those little things that attach to the trees, and I want to make sure that I finish the bases of the nuts before I do that, because if I pull it through something I need to shade, then that won't be good. I did forget this one. Okay. Come down here, load some water drops and some russet. And shade him as well. And let him dry before I go and do more. We can go in here and find that other void there and fill him with that soft black. On the water drops, I'm not even looking for a clean spot anymore. I'm just spraying it generally in my palette and then picking drops up. I'm loving having a water spritzer that does good drops, that's big enough to last for a whole project. That's cool. Okay, we're going to take and do a little bit more deepening with our nuts with soft black. You can kind of make this be a little bit more one-sided. Don't get everything too dark. Okay, just a little bit more, kind of toning down almost. Deepen that. And then I want to go with butterscotch. And let's give a nice glaze. I keep forgetting this poor nut that's on the ground down there. Let's give him a little bit of that deepening. Oh, I haven't done it around. Okay, well, I'm really ignoring him. I haven't finished the whole base. Okay. Let's go with the butterscotch and do a little bit of a wash. A little bit more of a wash. Stronger, not so much water. And yellow up. Give it some warmth. Okay, and then I think I'll go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and finish the tongue here. Or at least get it based, because I'm going to put the wheels on while we're waiting for Mr. Squirrels to dry. a little bit of a line there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my sign on. And the sign goes, here's your sign, right? From end to end. And I think, how much wheel to will? But too low there. That gets based in khaki tan. Khaki tan is an interesting color. It is your white. This is something I never, ever understood. Here is, let's go with, this is a brown color. Okay, so this is russet. It is a brown. I never understood that in some cases this could be your red. Red does not have to be red like the red you think about. Red can be whatever color in the red family. Orange can be your red. It just depends on which way you kind of play with it. But in this case, as I ponder how dark this scene is, I need a sign on here. Well, if I'd have gone on there with this white color, it would have been like, hello, blinding, right? So instead, we go and look for a khaki tan color. Khaki is almost straight smack in the middle of the value spectrum, but in this case, it's going to be our bright white. Okay, and that's just something that is interesting. Never would have occurred to me that your orange could be your red, your brown could be your red, khaki tan could be your white. But it just depends. This is simultaneous contrast, right? If you put white on here, then you are going to be stinking contrasting, and you don't want to do that. So we are using something that is darker on the spectrum and neutral, and that's going to be our white. Okay, just get that based. And see how that sets on there nicely, but it definitely looks like it's supposed to be a white. I don't know, fascinating to me. Okay, I'm going to trace my wheels while I'm waiting for that to dry, because I know I will not get them round. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just trace the whole thing. They're not in the way of anything else. I think I can just shade underneath that. Okay, the wheels are going to be based soft black plus lamp black. And yes, it's really necessary because black is too black and soft black's not black enough. So thin your paint slightly. You don't want to thin it till it's transparent, and you just base coat your wheels. Trying to stay round. That's when it helps to have a little bit of water in your brush so that you can get a good flow and a good swing on your brush. While you've got the color right there, go ahead and line next to, you could float this, but you can also just line it. Just a little bit on the top, it's more shadowed to the base. When you get done, you can take your lines away. Check for roundness. Try not to make your wheels grow bigger and bigger. Okay, while our wheels are drying, I'll give a second base coat to our sign. Okay, and then when that happens, I'm going to dip dirty brush into bleached sand and kind of blot it. Definitely dirty brush, lighter touch. And right through the middle there, I'll just give it a little streak of the bleached sand. The word nuts gets lined with the soft black mix, or just plain soft black, either is fine. As soon as that dries. Okay, when you want to erase a whole bunch of lines at one time, the wave eraser is awesome for that. It's got a chisel edge so that you can get into little areas, but it has a wide flat bottom there, so you can get them all at the same time. Nice for sweeping erasing. Okay, make sure if you're erasing and you're painting on something that multi-sided to get all those little goober bits off of your place. Next, we're going to learn how to use a foliage brush. A foliage brush is a tough bristle brush, natural fibers, that is cut on an angle. That's the toe, that's the heel, and they generally come as flat brushes. Okay, so we're going to use a variety of our colors on our palette, and what I want to do is I want to smash open my brush because it's much more interesting if I get little crunglies like that instead of big base coat blobs like that. Okay, so we need our wet paint and very open and just touching the toe. Okay, and we're going to go into a couple of colors of paint. And what we're going to do is here we're going to, create a path of our leaves. Okay, and then we're going to put some more defined leaves on top. So we'll start with wet brush and espresso on the toe, and then I'm going to tipple a couple sides of, I'm going to go right through my wheels and not base it solid, and then I might carry that up the back where my leaves are going to be blowing just a little bit. Then I'll go into a little bit of the traditional burnt sienna, and on it, just like a highlight kind of, using the back end of my toe of my brush. And I'll do the burnt sienna to kind of highlight those browns. That just gives us that little bit of movement. Then we'll use our easy stroke brush. Go bowling for paints there. And we're going to stagger and vary light leaves with reddish colored leaves and kind of neutral colored leaves. And they're going to be non-descriptive leaves. They're not going to be really, really shapy leaves. So I'm going to do some that have pointy edges. I'm going to do some that have round edges, and they're just kind of squiggle blobs. Don't want them too defined. Darker underneath places where things would be darker, like underneath the wagon. There's some that are going to be carried up here. The more I want things to fade, the more, this is something that I learned the hard way as well about color theory, the more you want something to fade, make it more like the background. So if, for instance, our white banner here, we wanted it to fade or to not show off, and so we made it more like the background color by going with a darker white. So I wouldn't want to put, and I'll show you an example right here, I wouldn't want to put that white leaf right there, right? I want to keep things, a little spit always works good. I want to keep things settled in our background. Okay, now we'll go into our traditional burnt sienna, and then we'll create some other leaves and layer them and stuff. Notice I'm tickling. I'm just doing a technique that I call tickling, which is just a squiggle. It's a squiggle base. Now I don't want them leaping over my acorn. I kind of have to have that acorn settled amongst the leaves, like it landed, there we go. It landed on, it fell off, it landed on there and kind of made him go poof, maybe. It can be kind of fun to tell a little story about what's happening here. I know that starts getting into a little bit more artsy-fartsy than we normally do, but, you know, what has this guy been out doing? You know, have fun with it. Tell a little story. You know, what's his name? You know, how happy is he that he's got this giant thing, or is he kind of irritated that he's not playing on his Game Boy or something, you know? Okay, so now we're going to go and we want to get ready. I'm going to put little feet on these guys. So I'm going to use this and make, this is my base color, so we want to get into, it's not actually my base color because I changed it. I'm going to make it into cocoa. Once again, if I put these white highlighted acorns on there, that would be too bright. So we'll base an acorn, base our acorn with cocoa. I'll let that dry, and then after the bottom is dry, I'll flip it over. I had tape to see if I liked it. The workhorse flats are your friends because they just hold up forever and ever and ever. And I'm looking for a missing acorn. Okay, next we're going to add blue accents to our sign. We're going to add some blue to some of the nuts. We still have to make those tops. I better leave those alone. We're going to add with the chisel of our brush a highlight on the spokes, pulling in on the chisel, or out, but use the leading with the chisel edge. It just helps it stand out without being like a "here I am" highlight. Okay, we could put some accents on the wagon. We can put some more accents down here on the ground. Under here. You can just have fun with these accents. Just, I don't know what it does, I don't know why it does it, but this is a favorite little trick of mine. Alright, let's put the tops on our nuts here. So we're going to get into cocoa and bleach sand, and we're going to just brush mix the two of them together. Lean towards the bleach sand. Okay, now we're going to put a top on, or stem on these. Oops, lose our brush control here. So we want to just put that stem on, and some of them are going to need to be lighter, and we're in a lighter area now, so we can be lighter. Notice up there that's going to be probably a little too light. He's upside down, he can have one, he can have one. Okay, getting a little porcupine looking. Alright, so, and we'll come across, and we'll just highlight towards the middle on them. Okay, we'll do the same thing down here. Alright, so we're going to wash our squirrel. I made sure I did a little test using a little bit of paint, a little bit of water, to see that my paint color was dry enough. And you could heat set it, you could spray it, you can wait a little bit longer, whichever way you want to go. I'm going to wash over everything, shape following strokes with terracotta. Get him into our color story here. And by doing the shape following strokes, what you're going to do for yourself is you're going to create part of the texture with the lumps of your brush as you're going along. Okay, now he looks like he's starting to belong, huh? We could go in to a couple of these nuts here and red them up a little bit with just a little wash of the traditional burnt sienna. Okay, when you're shading or when you're washing on washes, you got to make sure that you're dry in between. So what I'll do in the meantime is I will work on the feet that I'm going to do now. If the grain raises too much, you want to go ahead and sand these. Okay, so this is traditional burnt sienna. And so I'll just do these in my in-betweens and let them dry. Okay, and we'll just do all those. Okay, next we'll float using traditional burnt sienna, and we'll red this guy up. And we're going to use shape following strokes. And I can just make some choppy stuff coming out. I don't want to line him too much. Looking for drops of water. It is a dry day today. It's a very dry day. Okay, so we'll go over here and we'll do all of his little body features. Underneath, shade his little hand there. A little bit more control here. There's leg. His ear. Come on down his face. Okay, now he's much redder, right? Look at the other side. Yeah. In there. Okay, so we've got a couple of details while we're waiting for that to dry. We can put his little tooth is bleached sand. And his little nose is soft black. Except where I had way too much water in my brush. Okay, and let's see, do we have any? His cheeks are autumn red. I don't know if you guys have noticed that I have used, I don't know if you've noticed I've used autumn red on just about every project that I've done in the last little bit here. It's just a really neat neutral red color. Neutral, not quite orange, not quite red, not quite everything. So we're going to put his cheek on with that color. Wow, a little too bright. Spread it out just a little bit. He's huffing and puffing here. We could share the love with that color, otherwise it might be a tremendously isolated. We could put a little bit of that color into our wagon. Go on the other side, do the same. Just some streaks of it. We could put a little bit in his tail. We could lead the eye with it. Don't be afraid of just giving everything a little smooch of a color. Okay. Do the same over here. Up in his ear. Now we'll go into browns, and so we'll do some espresso. And that's just going to neutralize us, and we can add a little bit more texture to his tail that way. Darken down here. All right, we want to flick on a couple of whiskers. Bottom. Sure his ears have the right amount of little furs in them. And then beef up anything with furs that you see that faded out. I've got lamp black and russet in my brush. I don't want them to be too black furry. Ooh, yeah, like not like that. Okay. More of a russet black, I think, would be better. Okay, I think that's good. Now we'll trace on the details of his carriage things so that we can finish him up, and then we'll antique and run the home stretch. Alright, so on our little acorns, we're going to take our butterscotch color and we are going to highlight the middle area. A little bit of butterscotch. These need to be kind of nice looking because they're going to stick out just quite a bit. Right about now might be the time to add your feet to the bottom of your piece so that you can let the glue dry. Okay, what I'm going to use for the feet is just little jewelry pieces that I have. And I'm going to paint them green and I'm going to glue them right down there. You could screw them as well. You can do however you want to do them. But I want to go ahead and get those on there because they're going to be the support for the nuts. Okay, so I want to get them dried and secured. Okay, to do my feet, I'm going to sand a little bit in the corners, roughen that up a little bit. And I'm going to glue. I've got the little mini bottle of Fast Grab glue. So I'm going to set it down and then I twist it just a little bit and push to the edge. Wipe off the little bit that goes off over there and find my missing little foot and allow them to dry. I don't want it to stick out, but I want it to be kind of even to add support. Okay, while I'm waiting for feet to dry, we're going to antique the edges of our basket. We're going to antique them with black, the curved flat brush, and I made a mess of floating. We'll see if it matters. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the corner. I'm going to lead with the curved edge, and like I said, I made a mess, so I think it's going to give me a line. I'm going to put one coat on there, and we'll allow it to dry. I want to watch for that line, so I'm going to make sure that if I have a line, yeah, I probably just need to start over. I like rammed my brush straight into that color. I'm running out of room on the palette, almost time to change. Okay, so then we'll come over here and we'll float right up next to that edge. Bring it over here, round it out. I like the texture. I don't like smooth, smooth, smooth myself. So I want that movement. That has been one of the things that has bothered me in painting this piece, is not having the texture. So I've really been working to introduce the texture. Okay, that's going to be too dry. So we'll come over here, same thing. We can go ahead and finish along this line right here. Leading with the toe. Always leading with the toe. Okay, and get that kind of, just kind of textury. We're going to do the same thing on either side. Shove that in there. and bring it out. I'm keeping this off of those little feet while those feet's dry. Okay, so you do the same exact thing here. You just draw it along the line. It's just the tiniest microscopic edge to that line that is helping us keep it nice. Okay, next I'm going to take a mixture of the butterscotch and the bleached sand and highlight the centers with the dry rub. Okay, we'll take our flat and we float a little espresso. And that'll go up these sides. And in theory, underneath the rim. Okay. And then I think we probably will spatter that or something. So in theory, I'm going to spatter, not in theory, in actuality, I'm going to spatter these with some black. I got one great big ginormous ugly spatter on this one. Okay, now let it dry. I'm going to give them a varnish on this side. Don't varnish the back side and don't varnish your piece before you put these on, because they will fall off. Alright, so we're going to shade the base of the berry, the base of the nut, not the berry. Our red color. Give a little bit more pop to our leaf if we want to. We settle down just a little bit. Okay, when that's dry, we'll shade the bottom. We're going to shade the top with espresso. These are basically the same as the others. Brings a little warm, a little cool brown into the mix. Sometimes you can reach in there and get around the corner with these curved flats because they don't have a back flat end. When you have that back flat end, it smooches through and grabs the paint. So I'll go over here, tip the brush towards the toe, and work on finishing. That works out. And just a little bit more. And I'll flip them over and do the back side. I think I'm going to have this word stick out in front of this, because I don't think you're going to be able to understand what it says. So we'll have the nuts come on top of the nuts there. Okay, now we're going to add some drop shadow with lamp black. Now, hopefully, if this is too dark, we'll have to stop. And I think I'm just going to stop myself right there and say if it's going to be too dark, let's get out the soft black, which is currently hiding from me. Time for a new bottle of soft black, it sounds like. Okay. Get out soft black, add a little water to thin. And then what we'll do is on all of the left side and bottom. We'll add a little drop shadow. Just finishes off lettering nicely. Don't know how I feel about doing anything on top of the nuts and the leaves. So I guess I'll try it, see how I feel about it, and then don't do it to the other side if I hate it. Now we're going to spatter on. We've got antiquing happening. I'm going to spatter with black. This is where you want to protect things that you're not wanting to spatter. Okay, so I'm going to come over here with a heavy. I've got my palette knife. Okay, and I'm going to spatter towards whatever I want to have spattered. And then we're going to take the blue, the desert turquoise, really a dry spatter, so I'm really going to pound it off over here on the palette. And then what I want to do with this is in the lighter areas, add some flecks of that. Okay, so that's the effect that we have. Have to allow that to dry thoroughly before I flip it over, and I want to make sure I wipe off my mat so that I don't have anything that's going to stick. I'm going to add some final little floats in his tail, his little ear, cheek. Not quite like that. Ah. Just a little bit. Okay, we'll let this dry and then we'll go on to our next step. Okay, so I want to use Mary Jane Todd's antiquing medium. I'm going to pour some on my palette. I'm going to do this in a well-ventilated area. I'm going to use blue paper towels. The reason I want to use this is there's nothing quite as wonderfully warm as an oil antiquing. So I'm going to lubricate everything in here. Clean out my cobweb there. I'm going to go ahead and stay off of my painting. I'm not going to antique that with it. I could though. But I'm happy with the black and I don't want to dull the squirrel. But the inside of this basin, the stain needs to be warmed up. When I get done with this, I'm going to use the Clapham Salad Bowl wax after it's all dry. And I'm going to put a salad bowl wax finish on here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want it to be food safe, because we're going to have hands and foods and things like that in there. Okay, so get that all on there like that. All moisten. Make sure you get in your little nooks and crannies. The reason you want to pre-moisten is because you're going to want it moist to be able to wipe it off. Okay, I'm going to open up oil paint. I'm going to do just like a shoe shine kind of thing, put my finger with a little bit of the medium on there. And I'm going to go on in there, right in the corners. Ram it on in there. It's a little bit hard to show on camera, but at least it's a different kind of technique. Then on the back clean side, I'm going to buff it so it rounds those corners. And look at, I don't know if you can see it or not. Let's get you out of the glare. Look how warm that is in the corners there. I think I'll bring it in just a little bit more. going to want to take a paintbrush and dab it into those corners. Okay, clean it up with the backside and buff it. I don't want to wipe it out. I could wipe it out if I wanted to change the look or remove it somehow. Oh, look at that, that's gorgeous. You can't do that with an acrylic paint. It just doesn't work the same. You could use this for any of your wood finishing. You can stain and then warm it up with the oil antiquing. This oil is one that she's found that works better than just any, so she's done our legwork for us. Now I'm going to come up the sides here and do the same thing. This is going to be a little bit tedious for me because there's a lot of edges to this. I want my edges done. But it's going to look frickin' gorgeous. It's going to be a knockout project when we're all done. So I'll go up this side, put it on this side, and then buff it together. Okay, got the inside about done. I'm going to go where his tail is. Just go ahead and wet that right now. Warm that up, buff it back. If some of that gets on our green area, that's going to be just fine. Okay. I want to do our handle too. Wet the handle. Handle's a different wood. It's oak or I don't know what kind of wood it is. So I want to make sure that I tone it a little bit because it's going to end up looking too light. Now when we finish, what we're going to do is we're going to spray it with Deco Arts matte spray, and then that will help cure it. It'll be dry to the touch, and then let it dry for a couple of days, and then you can varnish like usual. And then after you're varnished like usual, then what you do is you go in and put the Clapham soluble wax on. Let that dry, and you've got a beautiful project. Okay, do my ends. Make sure you get these ends. Look for areas that you've missed, like the whole end over here. Okay, that's what we use nitrile gloves for. And at this point, then what we'll do, when we're dry, I'm going to also spatter with my black on the inside. And so the spatters will show, and I got a little bit of rough stuff going on here. Look for uneven stuff. With all these corners, it's real easy to get uneven stuff. Extra spatters there will help you hide it. Okay, when I get ready to put my little feet acorns on, I'm going to put my tacky glue on there, and I'm going to have him settle so that his top doesn't go over the edge and his bottom doesn't go over the edge.